morning. My name is Matt Stever. Today I'm going to be talking about my Spartan objectives for this 16-week course and the progress I made. Table of contents. So we're going to have my three objectives. I made a unit training schedule or a calendar that tracks all the training requirements that our Marines have been doing. Second objective is a personnel tracker. It's designed to help the higher command have in mind who they want to send to a future deployment. So we, as fire support, are augments to some of the infantry units, and we want to send the best fit Marines out there to represent us, of course, but to help them out. So, and then the last objective is to shorten the wait time for new joins in their check-in process. It can be lengthy. A lot of these guys are inexperienced, so my goal was to shorten that and make it smoother for everybody. So in the this training schedule, the goal was to improve the already established Marine Corps training management system or information management system. Ways I did that was making a calendar that was accessible by all the team leaders. And so they're going to be the ones to be intimate with their own internal schedules, and then they would deconflict sort of what I was prescribing for them and what is mandatory by them. And then we were able to kind of track their progress as things were being made. I made an Excel sheet that had color-coded, like when the due date was, stuff like that. So this graph kind of shows, it's a little inaccurate. It's not week 1 through 3. It's more of the bi-weekly report. So by the first report, it had barely half for Marines complete on fiscal year training. Very few were done with calendar. Obviously, the January, February timeframe, not a lot of people are going to get requirements that are due at the end of the year by the second month of the year. So those were expected to be low, but I really emphasized on the team leaders who eventually relayed it to their Marines that the sooner we can get things done, the more free time we'll have on the back end for other training and unit requirements. There was a lull moment during the field exercise. Not a lot of people were on base at that time, so it's hard to get computer access and get this professional military education complete. But it looks pretty consistent with reminding these guys when they have a chance. It's only 30 minutes or so, get a couple classes done. It's required anyways, so might as well do it now. And so we saw a shift in how many people got things done early in this year. I would say, in my experience, it's usually last minute. Most people are waiting until almost December to get, their required stuff done. So that's kudos to us. And we were just able to keep people accountable by having it in a tangible form where we can see like, oh, so-and-so's not done. Every Friday afternoon we tell them, get it done this weekend. So then we see if they did Monday morning. We found that earlier coordination leads directly to communicating, or I guess it's the other way around. Like, in order for us to get fast results, we have to identify where the issue is. And so when we see a group of guys creating a trend, not getting trained, that helped us identify, okay, clearly you guys need to get that done. The calendar was a really good way to visually represent like where our discrepancies were, and the command really just, they bought into it because they like results. If Marines are trained, it's a green check in the box for them. I don't think they really care how we did it. It's more about that it got done. For the personnel tracker, again, fire support, our unit, we're augments to infantry, and if we can send our best candidate over there, everybody's happy. The unit receiving that guy is happy, and we're, of course, happy to send them. So this tracker, it really helped, or I guess the tools used was the tracker itself, and then talking with the adjacent unit reps, people in my seat, but for another unit, I'd be asking them sort of, what are you kind of looking for? What billets need to be filled, sort of. This graph kind of shows the rating of each Marine on average. It's a little skewed because it's sort of subjective. A lot of things we added that were new was kind of this comment column about more than just the proficiency of the Marine, but how is that Marine on a personal level? And it's not about like, oh, what's his favorite color, but it's more about what are his tendencies. You know, if he's somewhat aggressive when he consumes alcohol, you know, that could be an issue when they're on liberty hours, and you know, he turns into a liability from a legal standpoint. So when we first implemented it, a lot of people had a lot of things to say, and I think towards the end we consolidated our thoughts not just into a concise, clear format, but in a way that anyone can objectively view that Marine. And so I think it's moved from being personal thoughts to more of objective, this Marine's fit or this Marine's not fit for this deployment, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, some results we have planned, I think, all the way to October right now. Things change, you know, if someone gets hurt or they have a family emergency back home and they need their seat taken, obviously we'll have to replace them. But as of now, we've got a good roster lined up, if you will. And this is an editable document by anyone, essentially, that has access to the share drive on the government computers. And so if there's any change for whatever reason, it doesn't have to be one person like myself. You know, it could be anyone in a leadership position, and kind of made us as team leaders develop this 3-day plan. Like, you know, what are the requirements, the non-negotiables? So it's basically like a batter up, like who's kind of on deck for any case to ever arise. Is really good to presume a problem ahead of time before it actually arrives, and you're best prepared. And like I said, this is available on the same share drive. It could be anybody in that position to look on the computer and make changes as they need. I think it really sped up the delay between what we recommend and what the command is asking for. We can almost anticipate what they're about to ask us and provide them a question or the answer to that question sooner. So the last objective for the check-in or the new join check-ins, it can be time consuming. It can be a chaotic time for the new Marine. We're really just there to receive them and make sure that they're taken care of every step of the way. And how we got that done was really relying on the team leaders and those appointed in the teams to be there at the airport and, you know, take this checklist and follow it accurately. And I really asking them, like, put what is wrong with it, because it was a trial run, really. And then ultimately making sure that they have gear accountability, because any gear lost between receiving it and when they return it, when their contract expires years from now, falls on the responsibility of that Marine. And so if they're issued a gas mask and day one they lose it but they don't tell anybody, of course when they go to return it and they don't have it, you know, it's going to fall on them, and that's a lot of money. So the graph kind of shows, you know, when we first got the batch of Marines, it's chaotic. Typically it takes about a week, sometimes longer, depending on, maybe there's a holiday on a Wednesday, no one's going to show up on Wednesday, so now you're already, you know, in these long queues. Who knows how long it'll take, but on average it's about 5 days. We brought it down to about 3.5 with the first group, simply by telling them where to go and where they can probably wait. You know, your unit issued stuff, the armory where you get your rifle and stuff, like, of course you have to go there, but some of the other places like the base library, not to say the library is not important, but it's not as important as getting your gear. And so I'm expecting it to get down to maybe 3. I think that might be as good as it gets. Some of these places it just takes all day to do. But the results are, we had 2 groups of 3 Marines. 3 came from an adjacent unit, like a communications unit, so that was actually pretty easy because they're already here. The second group, they came from the schoolhouse, the artillery schoolhouse, and so they were brand new to the Marine Corps, essentially, so it was a little bit different grouping. But delegating was good. We had Marines ready If for whatever reason Marines show up, like new Marines show up at the airport, which is an hour away, and it's on a Saturday or something, and people are, inebriated, they're on vacation, whatever, we have someone on base available. Drive down, pick them up, no problem. And that alone brought, the wait time lower. I think it was on average like 22, 23% just off the numbers that I calculated. So it's always good. Some lessons learned. It's not a perfect document. I know that things are going to need to change, especially as the unit transitions to a neighboring base. So it's almost like we're going to have to redo this. But we had a digital version that was really good to have versus just one tangible copy in the shop that you'd have to make copies for. It's good to have a laminated copy, but there's really no excuse for digital versions either. You can have it on your phone and be set. And then, like I said, the standby driver is really good to have. The command does a really good job of telling us like who we're going to expect, but sometimes we're surprised. And most of this information was pulled from my journal entries, the numbers at least. I don't know if the new join check-in will become a standard operated procedure. It doesn't seem as official as someone way more educated and higher ranked than me will probably make, but the calendar did really good. And I think the augmented tracker, that should help deployments, but we'll have to see. Time will tell. But thank you for listening. That's all I have.